Hi, everybody. Welcome to tonight's presentation/workshop. We'll go ahead and get started in just a couple seconds. We're going to give folks a little bit of time to get logged on. All right. Our numbers are climbing, so we'll go ahead and get started. Good evening, everybody. I'm Laura Gallegos. I am the Senior Communication Specialist for SCV Water. I will be assisting with tonight's workshop. Thank you for joining us this evening in the efforts related to the periodic evaluation of the Groundwater Sustainability Plan, or GSP, for the Santa Clara River Valley East Groundwater Subbasin. So before we get started, just a few quick housekeeping items. Tonight's workshop is an informational public workshop, and we'll have about 30 minutes at the end of the presentation for Q&A. If you have any questions, please enter them into the Q&A feature, and we will get to them at the end, or to as many as we possibly can at the end. You're also more than welcome to send us a chat directly to the panelists. All public input received as part of this workshop will be documented and considered as part of the evaluation process. For questions after tonight's workshop, please email SCV-GSA@scvwa.org. So let's go ahead and get started. To help set up some expectations for today, here's a quick overview of how the workshop is actually structured. We'll have 3 parts. In part 1, we'll talk about the purpose of tonight's workshop and walk through what you can expect over the next 12 months. As we move through the periodic evaluation process, this section is meant to provide context and explain why we're here tonight. So in part 2, we'll step back and cover some foundational information. We'll explain what the groundwater or the GSP is and clarify the roles of the Santa Clarita Valley Groundwater Sustainability Agency and the Department of Water Resources. We'll also discuss how groundwater is monitored, managed, why a periodic evaluation is required, and how we communicate with the public through annual reporting and ongoing outreach. Finally, in part 3, we'll look ahead. We'll review the DWR recommended corrective actions, share overall timelines, highlight upcoming workshops, and preview of and explain how you can stay involved and participate throughout the whole process. And then we'll wrap up with time at the end for Q&A. So to start, I want to briefly explain the purpose of tonight's meeting and how it fits into the larger picture. So the SCV-GSA is conducting this meeting and other workshops related to the state-required periodic evaluation to inform the public about the current groundwater basin sustainability, needed clarifications to the GSP, and to obtain input from the public. So why is a periodic evaluation required? Well, this periodic evaluation is required every 5 years under the state's Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, or SGMA. The intent behind this requirement is to ensure that groundwater sustainability plans remain current, effective, and based on the best available data. So conditions change over time, whether that's groundwater levels, climate patterns, land use, or regulatory guidance. And the periodic evaluation provides a structured opportunity to review progress and make updates as needed. Rather than being a one-time plan, the GSP is meant to be of a living document, and the 5-year evaluation helps ensure it continues to support long-term groundwater sustainability. In simple terms, this is our opportunity to check in, show how the plan is performing, and make sure it continues to meet the needs of the basin and the community. So over the next year, we'll hold additional public workshops, provide multiple opportunities for engagement and public comment, and have more frequent SCV-GSA board meetings. This process will include public review periods and conclude with a public hearing and board adoption. So now before we get started, we'd like to take a brief moment for introduction so you know who's involved in the periodic evaluation process. I'll ask each team member to quickly introduce themselves by sharing their name and role. And we'll start with the SCV-GSA team, followed by our consultant teams from Intera and GSI Water Solutions. If you could all just turn on your cameras and unmute yourselves when you introduce yourself.
Laura, would you like me to go? Are we waiting on Kevin Strauss?
Kevin's not going to join us tonight, so you can go ahead and kick it off, Rick.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Rick Virgutz. I'm a Principal Water Resources Planner with Santa Cruz Valley Water Agency, and I am one of the team members who were involved in the original Groundwater Sustainability Plan. The other team member tonight you'll meet is John Porcello, and I am the point of contact for the GSP and have been through a full GSP development. This process that we're going through with this periodic evaluation is not a full GSP. It's simply a focused update. So thank you for being here tonight. With that, I'll turn it over to Surfraz Alam.
Hi, everyone. Surfraz Alam. I am Senior Water Resource Planner and Hydrogeologist from SCV Water. I've been here around 1.5 years and been involved in agency's groundwater sustainability plan update and modeling. I'm going to turn it over to Intera and GSI for a brief introduction.
Good evening. My name is Tyler Hatch. I'm a Principal Engineer and Director of Technical Services with Intera Incorporated, and my background is in sustainable groundwater management planning and groundwater modeling. Prior to joining Intera almost 2.5 years ago, I worked with the Department of Water Resources in their Sustainable Groundwater Management Office and led a lot of the review of groundwater sustainability plans and did a lot of the water budget analysis that went into the sustainability plan review. And I bring that experience to Santa Clarita Valley to be able to help with the recommended corrective actions and provide the perspectives of the department, at least at the time that I was there, and help with the regulatory framework that is the periodic evaluation. Pass it on to Trevor.
Thank you, Tyler, and good evening, everyone. My name is Trevor Jones. I'm a Senior Water Resources Engineer here at Intera. Along with Tyler, I will be supporting the technical development of the periodic evaluation for this subbasin. My background is, like Tyler, very much Sigma related, but I come at it from the consulting side. I've supported the development of a number of GSPs throughout Southern California, as well as the development of periodic evaluations for subbasins that are just downriver. So I'm excited to support this group and interact with the board and public on this, and I will pass it off to John.
Okay, thank you, Trevor. Good evening, everyone. I'm John Porcello. I am a hydrologist by training, focused most of my nearly 40-year career on groundwater hydrology and water resource management. I'm a principal at GSI Water Solutions, which is the firm that led the development of the GSP, and has also been developing, applying, and refining the groundwater model that has been used to support the GSP and a great deal of other water resource planning work in the Valley for a number of years now. So glad to be here. Thank you.
Laura, we're not seeing the correct slide just yet.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
I'm having some technical difficulties, but Rick, once we get the PowerPoint back up, you will go ahead and take over.
Sounds good. I can see it now.
Okay, perfect. I will mute myself and it's all yours.
Okay. Great. Okay, perfect. So we're moving on to part two. Laura showed we've got a three-part presentation tonight. So next slide, please, Laura. Terrific. So we're going to walk through sort of at a high level and then down to some specific things with our groundwater basins. So I'll take a few minutes to go through some slides. It's been 4 years since the Groundwater Sustainability Plan was adopted by the Groundwater Sustainability Agency. 4 years, if you can believe it. And so a little bit review, I think, is good for the members of the public joining. So we're having the workshop tonight to discuss this periodic evaluation process. It's a required process from the state of California. It's required by the legislation. And so this is a sort of a focused update of our groundwater sustainability plan. We're going to inform DWR and stakeholders the things that have been accomplished since the GSP was developed. And then we're also going to talk about areas that need to be clarified. So going down memory lane a little bit, in 2015, after many, many years of concerns at the state of California level, they implemented or moved forward with the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act in 2015. This was a very big deal statewide. Until then, there had been no systematic approach to manage groundwater basins throughout the state. So in 2015, this act was put into effect, and there, at that time, there were no groundwater sustainability agencies in the state. There were no groundwater sustainability plans in the state. But following that, hundreds of groundwater sustainability agencies were formed to manage well over 100 groundwater basins. So they and us here locally in Santa Clarita had to form the Groundwater Sustainability Agency and then develop the Groundwater Sustainability Plan. The Department of Water Resources is sort of our key state agency that we work with. They review and evaluate groundwater sustainability plans, and they provide support to the local GSAs. Next slide, Laura. Drilling down from a high elevation to local. So this map here shows groundwater basins throughout the state. The ones that are sort of this olive color and red color, or maybe it's more of a gray color and red, are the groundwater basins where groundwater sustainability agencies are required. So there's been 352 groundwater sustainability agencies created as of 2015, if you can believe that, to manage 142 groundwater basins throughout the state. For us locally, if you look at the inset map on the bottom right, we're in the Santa Clara River Valley East subbasin. So it's an interesting subbasin. It's about 100 square miles in size. It has two principal aquifers. The Santa Clara River and other tributaries are key features of it. And those are unlined for the most part, and certainly the Santa Clara River is. Next slide, Laura. Getting to the actual Groundwater Sustainability Agency board locally. This is a picture of one of their board meetings. It has different member agencies: Santa Clarita Valley Water, City of Santa Clarita, LA County Waterworks District, and County Regional Planning. Leading up to adoption of the GSP in 2022, they had very frequent meetings. Since adoption of the GSP, they mainly meet quarterly, but with the beginning of this periodic evaluation process, they'll be having a few more meetings this year. They meet, we discuss governance, funding, such as funding the GSA, funding implementing the GSP. We report to them and get direction on managing the groundwater in the basin in line with the GSP. Laura, next. So leading up to that development, The groundwater sustainability plan that we're operating under now was developed over many years. And it was not developed in a vacuum, but developed in an open public process with members of the public attending board meetings, workshops. We also had a stakeholder advisory committee that provide very important work for us that had a number of teams in it, including an environmental team, a private well owner team, um, business and industry team. So an all hands on deck process took place to get us to the finish line with the GSP that we're working under today. Multiple meetings, as I mentioned. You'll see at the bottom of the slide, the GSA board locally here adopted the GSP in January 2022. The state approved it 2 years later. That looks like a long time, and it is a long time, but the state had well over 100 of these plans to review and approve. So the state allowed itself 2 years to do that. Next slide, please. I'm going to let you all just read this for a few seconds. I share this just to remind members of the public that the GSP has a sustainability goal that was developed with quite a bit of stakeholder involvement throughout the process. And it guides how we manage the basin. It has a number of key points in it, including managing the basin for future beneficial uses and users, use of adaptive management, robust science, monitoring, etc. And it's just an important overarching goal for us. Next slide, please. So the actual plan is a very large plan, of course, like all plans seem to be these days. And some of the key findings in the plan is that when looking at basin pumping, looking into the future, including considering climate change, basin operation is not likely to cause undesirable results. We don't have to get into the details of what undesirable results are. Just know for today that they're problems. They're significant and unreasonable problems that can come from groundwater pumping, like groundwater shortages, land subsidence, water quality impacts. The plan in 2022 also recognized that there was still a lot we didn't know. We had a lot of data gaps. We've done remarkable work filling those data gaps since 2022, but there's more work to be done. We provide annual reports to the board of directors for their approval every year in March. Those are available on the GSA website. There have been no undesirable results since we've been operating under this GSP, by the way. And the plan also acknowledges sort of an obvious point here, which is we had data gaps, we're doing studies, we're learning more, we're monitoring more. And so these plans are updated and refined with new information as it becomes available. And with that, that leads into adaptive management. We'll talk a little bit about some of the anticipated refinements that we're going to address along the way with this periodic evaluation as well. Laura? I'm going to go through some examples of how the basin is monitored and managed. And we're going to hit some key topics here. The first bullet has to do with groundwater elevations related to undesirable results, related to chronic lowering of water levels, reduction of groundwater and storage, depletion of interconnected surface water. These are the kinds of things that happen to water resources when water levels get too low. So I have a slide that describes that. The next one has to do with land surface elevations to avoid impacts from land subsidence. I have a slide that describes what we're doing with that. Also with groundwater quality, we're monitoring groundwater quality to look for exceedances of water quality objectives for TDS, nitrate, sulfate, and chloride. Okay, next slide, please. Thanks, Laura. Yeah, this is going great. So we've improved our understanding of the basin quite a bit. And I won't go through the laundry list of all the improvements that we've made with our understanding of the basin, but we've done a lot of work, including surveying things, installing more monitoring points, monitoring, analyzing data, updating our flow model, etc. Quite a few things. So we've really improved our understanding of the basin since adoption of the GSP in 2022. We know there are some things, go ahead and advance the slide, Laura, that need to be updated. This graphic shows that we have clarifications. We just floated in an icon here with the arrows up and down. It says clarifications in initial elevations are expected. So what we're talking about here is this red line and the green line, known as the minimum threshold and the measurable objective. Above those lines in blue is a water elevation in a well. And you can see it goes up, down every month, and it's fairly stable over time. We monitor dozens of wells in the basin to look at the water levels and to make sure that the water levels are above these thresholds. There are some areas in the basin where the thresholds do need to be adjusted, some of them downward, perhaps some of them upward, and that'll be a topic of a future workshop. We also monitor groundwater dependent ecosystems in the valley. This is an important effort. This is something that was not done before the Groundwater Sustainability Plan was created. The green areas in this map, which is from the original GSP, show the potential groundwater dependent ecosystems. The pink, oh, Laura, next slide. Excuse me, I got ahead here. This slide shows the map of the groundwater dependent ecosystem map. The green areas are the potential groundwater dependent ecosystem areas. Along this section of the river, we have a complex interplay of sinking groundwater, surfacing groundwater, and we want to monitor that to make sure that groundwater pumping isn't creating undesirable results to habitat. So this is our monitoring area. Next slide, please. We have gone out to these areas every year since the GSP was approved. We are developing a great database of information, and we really understand quite a bit more now about the habitat in these areas. So what's good about this is, even though it's a large effort, it's allowing us to develop a very good data set. The data set we're learning here is we do not see undesirable results from groundwater extraction. We also see that some of our minimum thresholds need to be adjusted, and frankly, some of them need to be lowered because they are set way too high, in some cases above the ground surface, unfortunately, due to an elevation error in a survey. So in future workshops, you'll hear about minimum thresholds for groundwater dependent ecosystems, and that some of those will need to be lowered just to make them more correct. And I think the bottom line there is we're making them more correct, and we've got a very good data set on the habitat here, and it's in very good condition. Next slide, please. We are also monitoring the land surface to determine if there's land subsidence. This is another one of these things that are new because of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. And just to take a step back, you can imagine for a minute, this is statewide legislation, and there are areas in the state with some very serious issues with groundwater subsidence, or excuse me, land subsidence due to groundwater withdrawal. This is not one of those areas, but we are required to monitor it. We do monitor it. We've started a very specific groundwater monitoring, ground elevation monitoring program. You can see these gold colored stars. We've completed 4 monitoring events. We monitor every 6 months to look for changes in land surface. Haven't seen anything that is clearly moving up or down in terms of land surface. Not shown on this map is the San Gabriel Fault. The San Gabriel Fault cuts across the valley north of these stars, and it is a very significant structural feature in the valley, and sections of the fault have been identified as an active fault. So there is an indication that subtle changes in ground surface could even be related to tectonics. Very interesting, fascinating, but the point I want to get across is we are monitoring it. We do not see evidence of subsidence from groundwater extraction, and we also monitor it with satellite data and GPS data, so it's carefully studied. Next slide, please. Groundwater quality. Here's another area that we monitor quite a bit. The Groundwater Sustainability Agency uses multiple groundwater wells, both municipal and specialized monitoring wells, to look at inorganic groundwater quality, so TDS, chloride, sulfate, nitrate. And we use a systematic process to determine if those values are going up or down. And it's a process that's even geared towards different reaches of the river. We know we need to make some clarifications in this approach, but I think the bottom line is that we're not seeing significant impacts with salts and nutrients. Next slide, please. Okay, I've just gone through a number of the areas where we monitor. After tonight's meeting, you can go to the GSA website if you'd like and download last year's annual report. They're prepared each year, and it goes through these in great detail. So we have a very open and transparent process with how the basin is monitored. Those reports identify some known issues, which I've alluded to during the presentation. If you look at the last couple bullets here, we know that groundwater elevation thresholds in certain areas need to be adjusted or corrected. And we need to clarify the methods that we use for the inorganic water quality analyses. Next slide, please. All right, this is great. So we're moving on. We're into part 3 now. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this slide because there are some key things to point out here. So when the Department of Water Resources approved our groundwater sustainability plan, they identified 4 recommended corrective actions that they want us to complete with the periodic evaluation. They essentially said, we would like these recommended corrective actions addressed. There isn't a rush, but you can do it with your periodic evaluation. And that's the process we're going through now. The first one, identify data gaps and clarify sustainable yield. Let me explain briefly why that's important to DWR and why we're going to address it. It's pretty simple, really. Our groundwater sustainability plan identified that our 3D geologic model for the basin had some data gaps in it regarding geologic structure. Fact is, the groundwater basin is a 100 square mile groundwater basin, and it's pretty hard to have data in every single area we'd like to have it. Since then, we have, with the help of grant money from the state, installed about 15 deep borings in the valley where we're carefully studying the geology. DWR, though, at the time we submitted the GSP, said, you know, you don't have a lot of data here. DWR, was concerned that we weren't really able to make as strong of a showing about the potential for land subsidence in the valley that they wanted to see. And though we have no evidence of land subsidence, the department wants more information. So recommended corrective action 1 essentially is updating the geologic model with new borings, talking more about the potential for land subsidence, And an outcome of that would be clarifying the sustainable yield. So that's why we're working on recommended corrective action number 1. Recommended corrective action number 2 has to do with water levels. You remember the graphic I showed you that had the red line and green line on it? The Department of Water Resources wants us to do more work here. Essentially, it noticed that the red line on some of our graphics, the minimum threshold, and other water level criteria were set at a level that might be a little bit higher than a level where actual wells may dry up or there could be concerns with habitat. So what the department noted is that, yes, we see the way you've set these red and green lines, but you really didn't show us how low the water levels would need to be to have things like wells dry up or habitat be distressed. And so we need to go in and look at this under recommended corrective action number 2. As part of that, we'll be talking with stakeholders, and we may lower some of these red lines. It doesn't mean that that's the way we're going to operate the basin, but the department wants to know how low water levels need to go to really start to create impacts in the basin. That's what this is about. On 3, this has to do with water quality sustainable management criteria. Our groundwater sustainability plan identifies a monitoring program for inorganic groundwater quality, but the Department of Water Resources also wants us to establish a specific monitoring program for groundwater contamination, including setting specific criteria for contamination and management actions that the GSA might require. But there's more to the story here, and we have met with the Department of Water Resources on all these topics. For the water quality sustainable management criteria, our approach is going to be to bring DWR up to speed more on how groundwater contamination is addressed in the valley. Right now, there's a perchlorate plume in the valley. It is monitored. SCV Water has municipal wells. Some of these wells have to remove the perchlorate from the water. The monitoring approach, the pumping approach is done under a plan called an interim remedial action plan that the State Department of Toxic Substances Control has approved. And this is going back decades. The water quality for contaminants is also monitored by the State Regional Board, and the Division of Drinking Water is also involved in it. So there is a very complex structure in place already to address groundwater contamination in the valley. The Groundwater Sustainability Agency took the position in the GSA that, we don't want to create yet another layer of regulation in the valley, given there's all these other state agencies with more authority already addressing that. So we've got more explaining to do on this one. I think where it's going to lead us is that we will create certain sections in the valley where we have special groundwater quality management areas that reflect either how the contaminants are managed or in areas where we don't have evidence of contaminants, how we'll fill those data gaps. So we've got a plan for this. And moving on to number 4, this relates to groundwater dependent ecosystems again. The Department of Water Resources wants us to clarify the thresholds where groundwater dependent ecosystems could incur undesirable results from groundwater pumping. We know already that some of the thresholds for these GDE areas need to be revised, and we'll be wading through this issue more with the public workshops moving forward. So that's why we're doing this extra work for the periodic evaluation. And these issues will be explained in more detail in future workshops. I do have a couple more slides, including a little bit more information for a workshop coming up in February. But before I get there, Laura, could we have the next slide, please? I'd like you all to take a look at this next slide. This shows you what's coming down the line in terms of meetings. We're in January now. We're obviously having workshop number 1. There will be a GSA board meeting later this week. We'll have a workshop in February on groundwater quality, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple future slides here. March, we're going to have a workshop regarding these clarifications for groundwater levels and interconnected surface waters. So interconnected surface water is related to the groundwater dependent ecosystems. So that'll be March. We'll be talking about adjusting those thresholds then. There will be a GSA board meeting in March as well. In May, there will be another workshop. This one, we're going to roll out the proposed new minimum thresholds and other updates that are proposed. We'll be using the groundwater flow model for this. Tyler and Trevor are working on a updated groundwater flow model, and we'll be using that updated groundwater flow model for this effort. We have another board meeting in June. And then we're getting to the point in August through December where we are providing the draft periodic evaluation. We'll have some public meetings, ultimately culminating in a public hearing in December where the board is asked to adopt the final periodic evaluation. And then after that, that will be submitted to the Department of Water Resources, and then we begin this process again. The Department of Water Resources will then review it. Next slide, please. Okay. Because the February workshop is just around the corner, we wanted to have a couple slides here. So the February workshop, we're going to talk about 2 things: groundwater contamination and inorganic groundwater quality. On the groundwater contamination topic, we're going to talk about more of the history with the regulatory requirements and how the perchlorate plume is managed in the basin. And we're going to talk about that area being a special management zone. So more to that is coming. Next slide, please. And then there's also an issue that the Department of Water Resources raised, and this is a difficult issue for the GSA because it relies on information from domestic wells, which the GSA doesn't have really authority over. The Department of Water Resources has asked the GSA to learn more about inorganic groundwater quality, largely in these canyon areas that are shown on the map. Now, we have done outreach in these areas with flyers and other things, but as yet, we do not have volunteers stepping forward to allow their wells to be monitored by the GSA. We're going to continue to ask, and I'm just letting the group know tonight. I don't know if there are private well owners that have domestic wells that would be open to their well being monitored. The GSA would collect the water sample, would pay for the water sample. We would provide the results of the water sample to the well owner, but we also need the data to respond to the Department of Water Resources interest here. So again, we need volunteers to help with that. With that, Laura, next slide.
All right, so I'll be covering this one, Rick.
Yep.
I'll take it from here. Okay. All right, so with all this information, there's no single right way to participate. Whether you attend meetings, submit comments, or simply stay informed, your involvement matters. We also want to be very clear about how the public can participate throughout this whole process. So we encourage you to attend these workshops, meetings, hearings. These sessions are designed to share information, answer questions, and hear directly from the community. You'll also have the opportunity to review periodic evaluation materials as they become available and provide comments, both during meetings and through formal public review periods. Local knowledge is incredibly valuable to this process, so sharing your observations, concerns, and experiences related to groundwater conditions helps inform our understanding of the basin and ensures local perspectives are considered. For those who prefer to participate in writing, written comments can be submitted during the public review periods for the draft and the draft final periodic evaluation. We also encourage you to stay informed by visiting the GSA website, signing up for email updates, and watching for public notices, and to engage with the local agencies and community representatives as part of an ongoing dialogue. Ultimately, your participation helps ensure the GSP reflects community needs, local conditions, and shared priorities. So just a little information about our upcoming workshop that Rick briefly talked about. That will be held on February 4th. That will be a hybrid meeting, so it'll be virtual and in person. It'll be here at the SCV Water Engineering Conference Room at our Summit office. I've provided the address, and then if you would like to register to participate via Zoom, you can do so, or just by scanning the QR code. Really quickly, this presentation will be recorded and will be posted to, well, is being recorded and will be posted to the GSA website. So once that recording is available and posted, for anybody who signed up to our Zoom meeting, will receive a link to that. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and start our Q&A. Rick, are you able to pull up the Q&A on your monitor?
Yes, Laura, I
Okay.
can see it. And how would you like to, would it be best for me to read the question and then see if it's something we can answer or if it's something that we need to think more about?
Yeah, I think let's take that approach. I'll go ahead and mute myself, but I'll still be here.
Okay. We have one question from Maria Gutzeit asking if the slide could be reformatted to show elevation in feet above sea level. And yes, we can reformat that. And yeah, I understand. Sandra Cattell has asked what is the impact of the limited amount of water released by Bouquet Reservoir? Does the Department of Water and Power owe the SCV-GSA water? This is something that is a little bit outside of the GSA's hands. The impact of the limited amount of water is best known by the people that live in the canyon, but we know that the releases from the reservoir have been reduced. And we know that LA County is spearheading an effort to restore that drainage so the flows can be restored. Roberto Puga I've got two questions from Roberto Puga. Will the presentation slides be made available? Laura, how are we doing that? Oh, I realize you're muted, Laura.
So the actual PowerPoint presentation will not be posted to the GSA website. I believe it's just the recording of tonight's presentation.
Okay, thank you. So video, Roberto, no slide deck. And Roberto Puga also asked if we can define SMC. Yes, SMC is an acronym for Sustainable Management Criteria. And it is a suite of criteria that identifies if we're having undesirable results in the groundwater basin or not. So that's what it is, and it's described more fully in the groundwater sustainability plan. It's a little more complex than just a single water level, for example, Mr. Puga. Sophia Barron, how are different land subsidence monitoring locations and other monitoring types determined? Are they based on locations with historical data? The land subsidence monitoring locations were determined a couple different ways. We did utilize existing LA County benchmark survey points where available, although the GSA also installed new survey benchmarks. All those benchmarks are now being monitored twice a year by a licensed land surveyor, and their locations were determined based on the area in the basin. It's a large area in the basin south of the San Gabriel Fault that is an area where much of the groundwater is extracted. And so that's why that area is monitored. Those benchmarks are above the area where much of the groundwater is extracted. There is some historical data on those, Sophia, but the quality of LA County's survey data is just not good enough for what we need at the GSA. Second comment from Sophia Barron, follow-up, I see that DWR wants to monitor in areas with data gaps. So it goes both ways, areas with historic and those without. Yes, that's right. Essentially, any areas where we have data gaps, we need to figure out a way to fill them. Comment from Ms. Gutzeit, excellent summary, nicely broken into understandable chunks. Thank you for that, Ms. Gutzeit. Tim Honadell, what incentives have been used to get private well owners to participate? Well, I think that's a couple things. We've done outreach, which isn't necessarily an incentive, but in the outreach, we have identified that there would be no cost to the private well owners, and that if they don't regularly test the groundwater from their well, they might find it very useful to have the GSA come out and take a groundwater sample and have it analyzed at no cost to them. And then they could have a current, an updated groundwater quality sample for their well. So we're happy to engage more volunteers, but Mr. Honadell, we've struggled a little bit because of the nature of well records. We, the State Department of Water Resources and Los Angeles County don't maintain the records in such a way to where we can hone in and talk to a specific property owner about it. So our mailings have been largely kind of a shotgun approach to large areas. So Mr. Honadell, if you have a well or know of people who have private wells, feel free to give me a call and we can talk about it more. So thank you. That's it, Laura. That's all I see.
Okay, let me check the chat, see if there's anything that came into the chat. I don't see anything else. Okay. All right. So with that, since I don't see anything else coming in, thank you for being here tonight and for your thoughtful engagement. Groundwater sustainability is a shared responsibility, and community input is an important part of how we manage this basin responsibly and transparently. We appreciate your time and encourage you to stay involved as a periodic evaluation continues. For questions after tonight's workshop, again, please email SCV-GSA@scvwa.org. And we hope to see you at our next workshop on February 4th. With that, I want to say thank you to everybody. Thank you to everybody who presented, and have a great night.
Thanks, everybody.